Can I Alrighty then. Well, I'd like to call to order the work session for November 17th, 2020. Our first item of business tonight is the Park and Recreation Board annual update, which will be led off by our Assistant City Manager, Kelly Brooks.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. And I see that Lisa Lashbrook, the chair of our Parks and Recreation Board, is here. And I'm going to make sure she has plenty of time to chime in. I also may see other PARB members kind of pop in as we go. And so I'll keep an eye out for them. But I am going to share my screen.
Ellie, as co-host, I think you can see the participants. So if you want to promote people.
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so I want to start off by saying we're a little out of order, and apologize to PARB and the council. We actually haven't had a chance to really finalize or discuss at length our goals for next year. So I'm going to tell you, I've given a draft. I have met with Lisa Lashbrook, and we've talked, but we're meeting tomorrow at our November discussion to talk. So I'm going to give you a preview of sort of where we're headed, and then, but it'll be a great opportunity for you all to share your input and then have a conversation with any members that are here in advance to finalizing it. So what happened in 2020? It's been a weird year. So you you may recall we actually opened up the Kronberg multi-use path in 2020, and PARB members really were instrumental in getting out and relocating a lot of those plants outside of the way of construction. So they actually went out and dug up the baby plants and helped get them out of the way so that they could be saved. So they played a really big part in helping make that project be successful, and then came out to help open it up. And it really did, because we not only were opening up the path but unlocking the TriMet bridge, it really did provide a kind of more ready access to the park, which was really exciting. So that was a really great start to 2020. The other thing that PARB did actively throughout and did it in 2019 and continued to do in 2020 is take advantage to speak up in support of Milwaukee Bay Park. So I believe it was in 2020, it may have been late 2019, when PARB members came to a district advisory board meeting where the project was being presented and provided comments to talk about how important it was. The PARB also spent a lot of time on the Dogwood Framework Plan. So it was a small but mighty planning effort to try to provide some additional definition to Dogwood Park in anticipation of the coho work that needed to be done. So we sort of understood where the major elements were, and to respond to some of the inquiries and questions that PARB had received from both the farmers market about storage and play space from the Sunrise Daycare. So that took quite a few months to work through that. PARB also advocated for and was successful in having NCPRD program funding for Scott Park Master Plan update. Now that work has not been able to get started because there's some staffing issues on NCPRD's side in terms of being able to resource it, but the money was put in the plan, and I know that that's going to continue to be important for PARB to monitor moving forward. And then last but not least, PARB, both Wilda as our council liaison, and then Ben Johnson, who is now a member of the County District Advisory Board for NCPRD, have been really involved in monitoring the membership proposals, the bylaws changes, and participating in those conversations, and advocating from time to time as well to raise Milwaukee's voice on those items. So that's what PARB was busy with in 2020. Looking ahead, PARB has talked quite a bit about recreational opportunities. If you've ever chatted with Linda Blue, one of our longtime members, this is a passion of hers. We would like to make some strides with some maybe 2 or 3 innovative programming ideas. We're not quite sure what shape that will take, but we think it's a great time for us to do this because we are getting our youth member on board too, which we think might add some new ideas. But the goal, really, it's focused more towards Milwaukee Bay Park, but looking for something new, small, kind of a pop-up programming activity, and see what we can make happen there with NCPRD. So we're going to kick up a conversation with that, with NCPRD on that at the first of the year. Continue to monitor Scott Park. Again, Scott Park continues to be a lift that the district isn't really quite staffed up to do, particularly with their focus on Milwaukee Bay Park, but it's really important to the PARB, and it will continue to kind of talk through. I know that the PARB is interested, and even if the master planning effort can't kick off in the near term, what kind of ideas can they be gathering now and collecting and documenting about what the space should look like or could look like adjacent to the library. So we'll be spending some time on that. We want to construct Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 2 on the slide. We can all say congratulations because we're done with that. I meant to write Phase 3. Phase 3 is what should be on the slide. And this will be a big one. So I think it's easy to think that we're done with Milwaukee Bay Park because the design has progressed so far. But over the next year is when the financing package for that project really either comes together or doesn't. And so there's a lot of support and passion for the project on the board. And I know they're going to want to lend their voice to different grant proposals, to advocating at different forums with the DAB and the County Commission to make sure that folks understand that this is a priority for Milwaukee and a regional priority overall. And then the DAB kind of ties into that last bullet. That's a forum where a lot of these conversations are going to play out. So continuing to monitor what's happening at the District Advisory Board will be important ongoing for the PARB. I also just want to say that things are different for the PARB. Since right when I got here, the tree board had just sort of spun off and become its own thing. And the Milwaukee Parks Foundation had spun off and become its own thing. And now we actually have a PARB member on the District Advisory Board, and the District Advisory Board is changing. So I think it's a really interesting time for PARB to think about what's their area of focus. We also now have a friends group at Elk Rock Island that wasn't in place when I first started being the liaison to the group. So there's this interesting kind of constellation of different parks advisory bodies that are all working in similar spaces and leveraging each other's interests and ideas that we continue to navigate. So I hope you all have thoughts on that when we get to discussion. I'm all ears. I also included, Lisa, these are some things that weren't on our draft work plan, but just some things that I know are out there that I also know council's heard about that we may want to fold into some of our conversations. So we know that Gladstone is preparing to do some paid parking at one of their riverfront parks. And this is something we are going to have to think about and probably discuss as a group. What do we want to do with this? Is that something we want to consider? How do we want to, parking at Milwaukee Bay Park continues to be an issue, and the demands to access the river, both at Milwaukee Bay Park and at Elk Rock Island and Spring Park, continue to increase. So I just think it's going to be a thing that we're going to have the opportunity to talk about and discuss in 2021, at least in some way. We do have our new youth members, which we're excited about. We actually think it's a really great chance to bring in some new voices. I think Parks is a perfect place to hear what youth have to say. So we'll look forward to welcoming them. Natalie came to a meeting and introduced herself. I should have had her do it a few months ago, to talk about her program. And there's a lot of opportunity there, I think, but one in particular is Earth Day. So we do need to think about what do we want to do for Earth Day in 2021? What does that look like? And PARB will be a partner in that. I'm going to be working on the big agreement with NCPRD, and we have a lot to cover in that, and I know that I'll be looking for some support and review from the PARB to help me get through that. And then last but not least, Elk Rock Fire Restoration is continuing into the next year. So while there is a friends group for Elk Rock specifically, there's a lot of users for that, and I know PARB continues to be interested in how that's going. So we'll be giving them updates on that as well. And I think with that, I actually just wanted to give you all, council, a chance to discuss, and obviously, Lisa, you a chance to talk about what you're thinking of in your vision for the next year. And if anybody else has popped up in the meantime, let them talk as well.
Lisa.
Yes, me, Lisa, baby, Lisa.
You, Lisa.
Yes.
Hi. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks.
So, anything to add to that? Thoughts?
In my sort of brain dead state that I've been in lately, I can't think of any. I mean, Kelly and I went over this, for the presentation today, and I can't think of anything right now to add.
Okay. I think Ben just hopped on. Can we bring Ben in?
While we're bringing in Ben, I realize I left one thing off for 2021 that actually is important. PARB is interested in and wants to continue engaging on coho. So how Dogwood interfaces with the coho development is another thing that's on their list. And I had that in a bullet point I think in the staff report, but it didn't make it into a slide. So
I think it did.
Okay.
I think it did, and I think you skipped over it. Maybe.
I just flew past it.
But
I saw Ben, and Ben never lets me forget about it. So I just wanted to make sure that I raised it.
You got it. I'm allowed to talk.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you, everybody, for having us. It's been an interesting year. There's one thing that we haven't talked a lot about in PARB, and I've heard kind of rumblings of it, kind of in my world of colleagues, that there's some kind of interest and motivation in starting to look seriously at removing the dam at Kellogg Creek. And I'd be interested from a park perspective, what that could mean from a recreational standpoint, obviously with the trail going underneath the bridge, and how somebody from our group maybe can, advocate for that and be a part and connect with the Watershed Council that's heavily involved in that.
Yeah, all the help we can get on that, the better. This has been a very long process. I personally, I can't wait, because then that strings together like three, 4 parks, right, in our system, which is really cool.
and makes for a safe crossing.
And that it's both a transportation piece and it's a parks piece. So, yeah, and obviously it's a fish passage piece as well. So it's a win. We just got to get ODOT to get off the dime.
I'm the council's rep to the Watershed Council, and the Watershed Council actually meets tomorrow, in case you want to call in for that meeting. I don't know if you guys want to have a formal, I'm happy to just kind of have put you in touch with Neil and have informal talks, or if you want to come to a Watershed Council meeting. Tomorrow's meeting is not going to be particularly focused on Kellogg, I don't think, but anyway, if anybody from the PARB wants to be a point person to meet with the Watershed Council, I'm happy to try to facilitate that.
Thanks, Lisa.
Council, any questions?
I guess I had a couple. One was, I went to some NDA meetings last week, or zoomed in for some NDA meetings last week as part of the Parks Foundation fundraising effort for Milwaukee Bay Park. But I got an earful from Hector Campbell about maintenance at Homewood Park and how they feel that NCPRD is not keeping up with maintenance needs. I guess maybe the split rail fence or something needed work there. And I just wondered sort of what is our process and expectation about how to report those kind of maintenance complaints? Do they come to the PARB? Do they come to NCPRD? How do they happen?
So here's what I can say is that we used to 2 times a year kind of divide up the parks as a PARB and visit them on site and kind of look around for what needed to be done. I wish that they had gotten in contact with someone, because this is the first I've heard of them having issues personally. We have not done that this year since COVID hit. We have not been going to the parks and getting on site. There is an online work order form or work maintenance form with NCPRD. But I was planning on bringing that up in the next meeting with Kelly, and then just talking about that issue and reaching out to that NDA and seeing, how they want to proceed. So.
Yeah, I would just add, we did sort of move. We found that we were waiting there was a little bit of a lag happening because PARB was going out and doing the visits and then submitting the requests. And so Kevin had asked if we could just get them, when we know about these problems, if we can just get them in to him through the electronic form, they actually get resolved a little faster. So I think what I would like to do, I can put it in the chat when I stop presenting. I can see if I can find the link to that and I can put it in the chat. And I can also give it to Dave Ashenbrenner because that's usually the most effective way, is just to get it straight to Kevin, and then it usually it happens faster.
And then I guess relatedly, or well, not really relatedly, but the other question, I mean, you were talking about what you called recreational activities in Milwaukee Bay Park as a sort of pop-up kind of thing. I guess, where do people come who want to advocate for recreational amenities of different types? For example, I have a neighbor who's an avid pickleball player, and she's always lobbying me that Milwaukee needs some pickleball courts. So how do we have that conversation, or where do we go with that conversation?
The recreation conversation has been an interesting one over the years. It seems like we have focused more on the park side than on the recreation side as a board, which has been interesting, and I don't quite understand it. I mean, I know that really NCPRD does the programming for sure, but sort of the conversation has been around how can we be more of an active voice in that, and it's tricky. It seems a bit tricky, but I mean, certainly it could be brought up with NCPRD that there's an interest. I don't know how much of an interest there is. Is it more than one person? I know pickleball kind of is a thing.
Yeah, I think pickleball is kind of a growing thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, there are NCPRD does have pickleball courts painted on tennis courts at Risley Park down in Oak Grove. I don't think they've done it at the one tennis court we have in Milwaukee at Century Park. I don't know what the potentials are for, high school, school courts, for use of gyms in the winter. I mean, not this winter, obviously, with COVID, but in future times, winter pickleball playing in gyms and stuff like that. So I think that, there was just an interest in trying to get that conversation going.
I think, sorry to jump in, but I think raising it to PARB is a smart thing to do, because you've got people that understand parks and they understand who does what. And it is a little confusing, and you have NCPRD that comes to that same table. So if you're sending it to the PARB, you're sending it to Lisa as the chair, then there's a chance there that then you can get that raised and you can get a response from NCPRD potentially at a discussion. You've got Ben, who's going to the DAB and would be plugged into the different conversations that are happening on the budget, on the NCPRD budget at that level. So I would say when people, and that's a parks issue, as long as they know that the city doesn't have the resources to resolve that issue, we have conduits or pathways of communication to people that do control those resources, and then we can help with that, would be what I would say.
And when you first brought that up, Lisa, it seems like it was a year ago or more, maybe, I don't know, a while ago. I did bring it up at a PARB meeting, but it was just a brief little bigger part of our part of a bigger conversation about recreation. Obviously it didn't go anywhere really, but I'll bring that up again.
Well, I've told her that she should, go to one of your meetings, and so maybe I'll tell her your meeting tomorrow.
Councillor Beatty, we also are going to have another opportunity for people on council and the community to talk to NCPRD. They'll be here in January for our annual update in September. I'm sorry, not September, January. Study session in January. So there is that's also a way for council to place some pressure on things that you think are important towards the people who are responsible for it. And I would love to see that happen.
Well, I guess, I'm happy to advocate for pickleball, but I don't want to be, I don't know what else out there people want, what other things.
Skate park.
Skate park,
Yeah.
And the Downtown Business Association, I think, would also support that, or at least several individual businesses in downtown are really pretty into that as an idea. So if it would be important for us to get some folks to show up in January to speak to that concern, that would be something we could do.
I would also ask in broader scale terms. I think Lisa Lashbrook and I have had this conversation. I think I've had this conversation actually with most of PARB at different points in time. This is NCPRD's responsibility, and just even talking about the interest in having more recreation is actually, whether or not you're talking about the specific topic, is a thing that helps. So I would also just put a plug in for just talking about recreation, and then the desire to have more recreation in our parks and in our open spaces is something that is absolutely not specific to a topic that you may or may not care about, but is a thing I've heard repeatedly from, I think, all of you and all of PARB.
If nobody else has anything, I want to touch back with Ben. So you said rumblings in amongst your associates. What specific? What's going on?
I've heard that the Watershed Council is leading a potential feasibility study.
Yeah.
For it. That's about as much as I've heard.
Okay. All right. I thought maybe it was out in the parks designer world or something that.
No, well, it's in the engineering world. It's from engineers that we know.
Okay. Huh.
We had a presentation from Neil at the Watershed Council back in June, maybe. I mean, we could send you, one of us could send you a link for that. And that, I don't know that a ton has happened since then. We committed $25,000 out of the budget toward, there's a final sort of study of the contour of the creek mouth from the lake to the Willamette that has to be done. And so we committed $25,000 if they could raise the rest, and they're pretty far along on raising the rest, so that is likely to go forward early in 2021. So that's where that stands, and that's sort of the final study, or supposedly, hopefully, the final study.
Yeah, I'm betting, at least based on the last conversation we had with the, what's it called, the governor's.
Oregon Solutions.
Yes, Oregon Solutions, that they're going to require another silt study to look at where the toxics are, how much there is, blah, blah, blah. For whatever reason, the one we did before isn't okay, or no one can find it. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but that came up a 3 times in that conversation.
No, I think Steve's given them that maybe more than once. So
maybe it's not good enough or something. It's not.
I don't know
I don't know. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Anything else? Seeing none. Great job, PARB. Keep it up. You're doing great. Milwaukee does much better on parks than most of Clackamas County, I gotta say. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
All right, our next item is a capital projects update with our engineer, city engineer, Steve Adams.
Hello, good evening. This is actually an interesting night. A year ago, I was the excited one who jumped in before Mark Gamba had a chance to introduce the meeting. So a year later, I've toned down a little bit. I know that's expected, but everyone got a good chuckle out of me last year, if you remember that evening. I'm sure Ann does. Okay. This year, as you know from our August presentation, I let Jen Garbely present a lot of the CIP work because that is her job here with the city, is the CIP project manager. And then Peter, we've combined some of Peter's slides from Public Works, so he'll be speaking also. Let me share my screen. And hopefully this all works. Share, boom. And try to get this on the correct slideshow. Okay, can everyone see?
Yep.
Good. Full screen? Good. Okay. So Peter, you had the first few slides, I believe, if you want to.
Sure. Yeah. Well, good evening. I'm Peter Pastorelli, the Public Works Director, and I wanted to talk about a couple of the projects that our Public Works Department is managing. First off, we've got our SCADA project, but also talk about our well number 2 project and the master plans that we're doing. So our SCADA project, SCADA, as you might recall, is the automated computer system that we use to operate and control our water system. So it tells us when we need to turn pumps on, how much water we need to put in our storage tanks, how much water we need to pump out into the distribution system, depending on demand. Our SCADA system hasn't really gone through an extensive update since the mid-90s, so it's rather old and dated. So we've been working on this for a while. The first thing that we did when I got here is that we put together a SCADA master plan to sort of outline the path forward to updating the SCADA system. Once we got that done, we solicited proposals or RFQs from consultants to determine who was going to help us design the SCADA system. So we selected a consultant, Tetra Tech, to help us with that, and they've been going through the design process. And it's been a team process. Our Public Works, our IT department, and Tetra Tech have been working on this SCADA system together, the design. Currently, we've been working with the consultants, Tetra Tech and IT, to develop the SCADA network architecture. So that's sort of the computer part of the system, how the servers are set up, how the firewalls are set up internally to provide cybersecurity so somebody can't come on and hack onto the system. So we've developed that design, and Brandon and his department are in the process of building that out, building that network architecture out. They've gone out and procured the material and the servers and the software for the most part. I think there's still some software that will be coming back to get, but they're in the process of setting that system up. Once we've got that set up, the other part that we're working on is the communications procurement package. So that's how outside the network, how the SCADA system is going to communicate back and forth. So one of the things we're going to set up is a cellular system, and then also a radio system, so the SCADA can communicate. We have redundancy there if one pathway fails. So we're in the process of developing that package, and then I expect that will go out for solicitation in the latter part of the winter. And then we have the field automation procurement package that we're working on as well, and that's how the system operates at all of the facilities that we have. So it's all the gadgets that we plug in to get the pumps to pump when we want them to pump, and to manage and measure pressure and how much water's in the storage tanks, things of that nature. So I expect that package to go out for procurement in the early part of the spring, and I believe we're going to have this project done by the late part of the summer of 21, August, early September.
Peter, can I ask, you said at the outset it's for the water system, so it doesn't have any role with the wastewater collection and the pump stations and stuff?
Good question. And yes, it actually does. And I'm glad you brought that up. It does tie into our pump stations. So we also could use the SCADA system to control the pump stations that we have that pump water or pump wastewater in our wastewater collection system. So yes, it does. Thank you. Any other questions on that project? So I guess I've got control here. No?
I do.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Well,
So the next one is our well number 2 project. So last year, we finished drilling the well. We put in a new well at 40th and Harvey. So we've got that well down. It's close to 400 feet down in the ground. And we determined that new well was going to be a little bit more productive than the older well. And that caused us to pause a little bit on the second phase of the project of building the pump house and the process piping and the pumps, because we wanted to take advantage of that additional capacity that we had on the well. So what we ended up doing was doing some modifications to the design and change the pump size so we could take advantage of that. So once we got that done, we solicited bids for construction, and in July, we awarded that to Stettler Supply. They mobilized in early September. They had a significant pause because of the fires. Some of their crew was affected by the fires and had to evacuate their homes. So we probably lost a month in that process there. They did get started back up and working in mid-October. And currently right now they're working on the pump base where the pump is going to rest for, and the motor are going to rest for the well. They're also working on the building foundation excavation. And then they're also doing material procurement. So the pump that we ordered, pumps generally have a long lead time. So they had to order that back in September, as well as some of the other things. And that pump probably won't be here until probably sometime in May, I'm guessing. Yeah, and so they're working on getting those components there. What we have upcoming in December is once they've got the foundation excavated, they're going to start working on the underslab piping. So we have a drain and piping and things like that need to be underneath the slab that they're going to pour. They'll get they'll get those components set. They'll get the electrical system set underneath the slab, all the conduit put in place. So that's the work they're planning on doing December. Right now, the project is on schedule. Estimated completion is June 21. The only thing that might push that back is the pump, when we get the pump in. So they're a little optimistic. They're optimistic that it'll be here in time, but that could cause a delay. Any questions on that project? And then the next a couple things that we're working on are our master plans. So we hired water system consultants to work on our wastewater master plan, and Tetra Tech to work on our water master plan. They've been working on it for probably a good 15 months. As we were developing the plan and providing the data that was necessary to build the models, we found some deficiencies in some of the data that we had. The way that we've connected data in our GIS system, the way pipes were connected. So when you looked at it on a map, they looked connected, but the program didn't necessarily recognize they were connected in the model. So we had to go back and make those corrections to the pipes, specifically in the water model, to make sure that they were they showed that geometric connectivity. So that sort of slowed the model development up a little bit. But we got that piece connected. And then with the water piece, we went out this summer and did some fire flow evaluations, some testing, and they used that information to calibrate the water model that we're using. And they finished that calibration, and now they're in the process of using that the information that we've provided to evaluate potential growth and identify any issues that we might have on our water system in terms of meeting future demand. On the wastewater side, we've worked on developing that wastewater model as well. We did an extended period of flow monitoring in the wastewater system. So we wanted to look at what does the wastewater system do when it's not raining, and what happens when it's raining. How does the rainfall impact the wastewater system during rainfall in terms of infiltration and inflow? So we got some really good data that was useful. The consultants is using that. They've calibrated their model and are looking at where we might have capacity issues as well. The early information that they provided me today was that it looked actually pretty promising in terms of our wastewater collection system, that there's not very many deficiencies in future ability to handle growth with our collection system. Where we might have some impacts are related to the treatment plant. So once we've gone through the model evaluation and identifying those issues, we're going to build upon the necessary capital projects that we're going to need, both on the water and the wastewater side. Both plans include a climate and seismic resiliency chapter that are new to the master plans that look at the impacts related to climate change and how will our facilities and infrastructure manage that change, as well as changes related to seismic issues. I expect to have the drafts of both of those plans done in the early spring to share with the council, and it's been a long process.
Peter, I've got a couple questions for you. I've shared with all of you the sort of interest in I&I specifically from Wes, and that the advisory committee will be talking, really quite a bit over the next couple of months on the goal of Wes system-wide to reduce inflow and infiltration by, I think they targeted 65% reduction. And so we'll be talking quite a lot about that, but I wanted to know, I'm pretty sure you're on the technical advisory committee that they have convened. And so you're sharing this information with Wes, including the findings that you're talking about, because I think I'm a little surprised to hear that maybe we don't have as many problems in our system as perhaps Wes thinks we do. And so I guess maybe if you can speak to that a little bit, and where there might be, whether it's a delay in the information that they've received from us, maybe they've got some outdated information, but also, in terms of completing a plan by spring of 2021, how we plan to coordinate with them, about the, I guess I'm just still sort of looking for an acknowledgement that we're going to be, heading into this sort of a little bit of a parallel, there sort of be two conversations happening at the same time that really need to intersect as much as possible.
Sure. And Jen's been part of that technical advisory committee meeting as well. And I think, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we met with them in August or September, and we had our consultant go over our initial findings related to I&I that we've found, and really it's pretty. We look pretty good compared to what Wes's analysis showed. So we did a more detailed, more extensive flow monitoring than Wes did, and I think where we're headed is we want to really establish with Wes that if we sort of follow through in maintaining our system and can demonstrate that our system isn't degrading like they are forecasting it's going to degrade, then we're not going to have the I&I issues that they're forecasting. And that's an acceptable means to be compliant. So, for example, the current I&I rates that we're looking at per acre are about 6,000 gallons a day based off of our analysis. So Wes in 2016 suggested that it was going to be that we were at 6,300 gallons per day. And they were projecting by 2020, we would be at 8,400 gallons per day. So we're only at 600 gallons per day in 2020. So we're well underneath that forecast of where they thought we were going to be in 2020. So, we do have some projects we've identified to reduce I&I. One of them's the Waverly project. I think, we have it. That's a big project that we have that's going to help us fix some problems. So that's one thing. We just need to, we've initiated that discussion with their technical staff on that, hey, our system's not degrading as you think it's forecasted it to degrade. And then I think the other part of what we need to do is demonstrate through some periodic monitoring, flow monitoring, that it's not degrading as well. So, every 5 years, we're going to want to do flow monitoring in our system to see what I&I is looking like.
And just so everybody sort of, understands kind of where this, the policy level conversation is going to be headed. There's now that we've updated the bylaws for the West Advisory Committee. There's representation. There's representation from all of the cities. So I now have counterparts from all the electeds across the system, and they Wes is they are going to be convening conversations with each of our cities about. I think the hope is to have IGAs in place with everyone. I think they would like to the conversation so far has been very, very much sort of framed around this idea of shared responsibility for reducing I&I. And I think, each of our cities have different funding challenges. We have different plans already in place, projects we've already done. So there's going to be a lot of sort of, differences for among the varying parties at the table, in this conversation. And how do we meet the goals of West system wide? How do we share in this, who's contributing what and how. And so making sure that we've got some, really solid data at the, is going to be kind of, I think, really important for us, especially since we've already spent a lot of money and we are already planning on spending a lot of money, to achieve some of what Wes is hoping to achieve system wide. So just sort of teeing that up for everybody, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know where we end up, but I do know that it's going to be a difficult conversation because we've got lots of different cities with, different challenges and different opportunities and different systems, not just age, but not just age of physical actual infrastructure, but, how folks even, whether or not folks have the ability to pay the way that, some cities do.
Yeah, and I think we're in a really good position because we have really good information, up to date information on where we are, and what the condition where we have issues in our system that we've identified as we've worked our way through this master planning process. The other part of that would be, the periodic monitoring is working with Wes to get funding from them to help us do that periodic monitoring as well. They do offer in the IGA that we have right now to fund about 10% of I&I projects, which is really a small number on the slip lining is relatively inexpensive. So they're not really putting up a lot of dollars. So, one of the conversations that I think Jen and I had with them in the late summer was, was there a way to increase that shared cost for the I&I projects from Wes's side? So.
And can I just add sort of an ask and an add for anyone who happens to be watching that the reason this is important to Wes is because when you have inflow and infiltration issues, it affects their system, correct, Peter?
It affects it. They have capacity. They will have capacity issues at the treatment plants.
Right. So the fact that we are so wildly overperforming based as opposed to their estimations, I'm just curious how, the Kellogg plant upgrades that they did and are continuing to do, I assume that their assumptions were based on calculations that assumed that we were having a greater impact on the system than we actually are for what sort of upgrades they needed.
Well, I wouldn't characterize it as wildly overperforming. I mean, we're doing better than they forecasted we were doing. They took.
But it sounded like it was 30% better. That's pretty good.
It's better than they forecasted, but we did an extended flow monitoring. They did just a one day. They took a look at like one storm event. What happened at one storm event? Right. And, we took a look at what's happening during dry weather and then what's happening over several different storm events and how does the system handle that. So we've got better information. And also, to be fair, since 2016, we have made some improvements to our system. We've with the exception of the Waverly system, we've wrapped up our clay pipe removal replacement program. So, we've made those improvements.
That weren't originally accounted for.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the plant is still going to have capacity issues, and we're still going to have another conversation about that. But we need to get through our master plan to kind of see how that's going to affect.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I didn't have anything else on this.
Okay. Next up, then, Peter's done with his presentation, and Jen will be handling most of CIP, and I'll speak up on a couple things that I am aware of. Go ahead, Jen.
All right. So we got River and 22nd. We are under construction. Yay! So, what to expect? We have a construction speed limit of 15 in that area. We wanted to drop it, make sure we're being safe through this. This is a difficult area to construct. You can expect detours and delays. Right now, we're preparing for some water shutdowns. That's kind of the first work that is happening. We're doing all the water work, and then we're going to do all the storm work. And then we will move on to sidewalks and curbs and then finish up with our roadway. The ultimate completion date is supposed to be October 2021. If we have no delays, it will be sooner. So that's where we're at with River and 22nd. Any questions?
All right.
Linwood, oh my goodness. So we got our bids back. We had our low bidder withdrew. The next low bidder was significantly higher. And so we've been working very hard. Wendy's done a lot of work to help reduce our scope, see if we can get that budget under a little bit more. She was able to reduce it by $250,000. Tonight, we're going to be up for that award. Very excited. D&D is looking forward to jumping in on the project and getting going. PG is delayed from the fires. They were supposed to have all of their poles removed by now. They're looking at starting January. And so we will be working in conjunction with PGE and our contractor. It isn't great, but we do it all the time, so we'll make it work. Project completion is on schedule to be done by September 2021, and we're ready to go.
That's unbelievable. I just want to say, I can't believe that that's actually happening.
Yeah, another project, long time coming.
Yep,
Sure.
it's pretty exciting. So we're moving. We're moving.
And is there utility work in that one or no?
There's stormwater, a little bit of water, but it's mostly stormwater, and that's where a lot of the work, a lot of the budget was in stormwater. So we relooked at kind of our facilities that we were building. Was there a way we can do it a little different? So we value engineered that. Contractor came back with a couple ideas if that could help work. We reduced, we had some bollards on the project. We decided to pull those. We heard from the biking community that they're really not great. So yeah, we're making, little things that can help, and the contractor's definitely willing to work with us. So that partnership is kind of exciting to start it out.
That was a pretty big bump. Do we have some understanding more specifically, other than that it's mostly stormwater, why it was? I mean, it's like a 30%, isn't it? Am I misremembering numbers?
So one thing that's kind of misconceiving is that the low bidder had an error in their bid. And so it looks like it's, a huge difference between that low bidder and the next low bidder, but they withdrew. So obviously they had an error in their deal. The next 8 bidders weren't that far off. I mean, they were all in that range. And so, yes, there could be something in there, but we really don't know. I don't know if there's a pipe issue getting pipe. But we did have, 9 bids on this project. So, and to say that
what we had estimated, right? Isn't that your question mark?
I can't hear you, Angela.
But all significantly higher than what we had originally estimated. I think that was maybe Mark's question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jen?
Yeah.
I recall the HHPR was going to, a consultant who designed this was going to look into that, see if they had a reason why the pricing came in high, but storm came in about double what we had thought it was going to be.
Yeah, they don't really know. They don't really know why. Their bids on the west side of the river were within reason. So, but they had another bid also on the east side that was higher than they expected as well. So it'll be interesting when we go out for Lake Road, what we'll get back from that. So I should have more information as Lake Road and 43rd, and see if it's a trend that we are actually going up, or if it's just this is what happened on this project.
Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and jump in here a little bit. Monroe Street Greenway, we're meeting with ODOT tomorrow morning, actually, and have our first discussion with them on that. With that project, too, we have a consultant on board to draw up a prospectus, which is a written document required by ODOT that they need to agree upon before starting to release the many millions of dollars in grants that we have. So ODOT controls the purse strings. We expect to have the prospectus completed by spring, and then we should be able to hire a design and consulting engineering firm probably second half of 2021 and get the design going. There's been a lot of conversation in at least the Hector Campbell neighborhood with this project and home of the Wood Edison's easy. Home gets all the attention from the NDA. Beth and I met with the NDA in their meeting earlier this month. Beth handled all the questions and updates on home. I was there to tie in the interface of how Monroe Greenway ties into home and some other issues there. So we have been in discussion with the NDA with that. Homes under design, we hope to have 30% plans by January, and we'll have more meetings with the citizens and stakeholders in the wintertime with the Homewood Edison project. The other one I'll talk about now, just get my three out of the way, is Lake Road. Lake Road, we'll go out to bid on Thursday, and hopefully we'll get some good numbers back in, but we're working really hard to put all the documents together and get that out to bid. That then would go under construction probably in the midwinter time period, late winter. But again, to be completed in fall of 21. So a very busy construction season next year for us.
Hey, Steve, when you say that you'll be doing outreach and engagement, will that be happening through the Engage Milwaukee website, perchance? Or is it going to be someplace else?
We actually have JLA on board for the Homewood Edison, so we'll be leaning heavily on JLA. In talking to Kelly, we want to kind of take small steps getting involved in Engage Milwaukee until we understand more how it works and what we're going to do. And Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I recall we decided that Lake Road is going to be on Engage Milwaukee because we don't have a consultant on board to help us with public engagement. And then because the Monroe Apartments gathers so much conversation, we'll put that, for most private development, we'll put that on Engage Milwaukee so that we have a chance to, those will be the first two. And then we'll kind of play it by ear how that goes and what else we bring onto that format.
Mm-hmm. Great.
So McBride, it is paved. Oh my gosh, we're super excited. We have a little bit of punch list items, a little bit of negotiating to work with the contractor. We do have some contaminated soil still that we have to resolve, and we're working on kind of a final number for that, which I'm hoping we come back to you in December. But otherwise, it's open, and we don't have any more road closures there. And it's a smooth ride if you haven't got a chance to go down there and drive it and even walk on our new sidewalk.
It looks great. I drove through there the other day. Looks really nice.
Great. Beth has been working very hard on that project. Meek South Phase, we are pretty much wrapped up. I have a few dead trees that, so I haven't signed off the project yet until I get the landscaper back to replace some of the dead trees that didn't make it through the pond, or a couple on railroads. So I'm looking for that. They have updated and fixed the well site, and it's been hydro-seed. The Murphy site has been finalized. All pipe is installed. We've resolved the utility conflict with CenturyLink, and literally we've got a final walkthrough, and then we will sign that off and close it out. 43rd Safe, we are getting 90% drawings here pretty soon, and then prepping for bid documents. So we're moving that one along, and we're getting closer. Do you guys have any questions?
Okay, that's all we have.
I just wanted to bring up something that I brought up with staff, with some of the staff today by email, but I just wanted to sort of put it on everybody's radar screen. You know, we heard that some of these projects are coming in under budget and, over budget. And I brought up again an issue that the council had discussed several years ago about citizens who have obligations to pay for sidewalks out of prior, land use things that they didn't, they were given the opportunity to promise to pay for sidewalks in the future. And I just, so I raised the question of trying to utilize some of those commitments from people to fill in our funding gaps. And I do think we should be looking at that and having conversations about that. Those are never going to be, there's probably, in some of those cases, they're 20 and 30-year-old obligations. And so holding them to current costs might not be a fair thing. I mean, we might have to think about, what's a reasonable expectation. But I do think we should, people got a benefit for that promise at the time, and we should be using those commitments to fill our funding gaps. That's my personal view, and I hope we'll discuss that a little more as time goes on.
Lisa, am I misremembering, or staff, am I misremembering that I thought we were talking to those homeowners when the project was actually on their street? So for example, on home, if somebody signed one of those on home, that we were approaching them and saying, okay, the time is now. Is that not the case? Because that's how I thought we left it.
I said I would jump in on this one. So the only place that I've had an active conversation about this is on Linwood. And we struggled a little bit. There were quite a few different files, but as I mentioned in that email, we had a grant in play and we weren't sure how it was all factoring in. And so our struggle right now is, I guess, thank you for raising it. As you know, I'm a big fan of money for transportation projects. And we certainly need all the help we can get to round out some of these projects. I think my question moving forward with this is the practicality and the feasibility of actually collecting. So we struggled to know how successful we might be. So I have some follow-up to do, frankly, with Justin on this. Not all these agreements match. The terms are different. And so before we dig in and get the full picture, they're kind of scattered all over the place. How likely are we to be successful? And I don't know how much Justin can help answer that question for me, but it's sort of a workload question that I need to grapple with. If it looks like we have a path and it seems something that we can accomplish, then we're going to have to jump to that next step. Okay, we've got the universe. Here's the projects that we have. It looks like we could collect. Then what would be our method of collection? It's probably, you guys just heard that we have a little bit going on next year in terms of construction. So our project managers are a little maxed. So I doubt it could kind of necessarily just fall to a project manager to take care of that. So we'd have to then figure out how we would operationalize that. So thank you for raising it. I have some questions about likelihood of success and how much we should put time towards it as a viable path. And if I can get some answers back on that and some certainty there, then we would proceed to that next step. But we did encounter it on Linwood, and on that one, our analysis was like, hey, we don't think we can actually get this, and we've got this other grant, so let's keep going. We don't want to slow ourselves down. Was sort of the tack that we took there, but that's not necessarily one we have to keep taking. And I think that's all I was going to say on that one. I may have had some other amazing point. Oh, my last amazing point is we don't want to do it anymore. So now we get our money up front. So we have, as a team, and Steve's a really big advocate for this, and he's 100% convinced me. I don't want to do this anymore to try to go back 20 years later and collect. It's pretty hard. So we make every effort now to make sure that if we're collecting, we're doing it on the front end. So that's the only other thing I wanted to say on that.
Well, yeah, I think the city had even stopped doing it 10 years ago or something. My impression was that we moved to fees in lieu, at some point in the 2000s or whatever, and that these were, necessarily going to be older agreements. Yeah. And I do recall from when Chuck brought them to us that, they were all over the map. Some are on people's deeds, some are not. Some have a time limit, some do not. I think you are going to find that they're not all the same, like you said. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you to Steve and Jen for Peter, but Steve for it's been really busy few months for them. Lake in particular has been a beast that they've been grappling with, that a lot of different members of the team have had to put a lot of time and effort into working through. So I just want to congratulate you all for all that work.
And the award. Yay!
Yeah, great job, everybody. This, so it's a long-term thing, this SAFE program, but it feels long, I think, to a lot of people. But you guys are really moving very powerfully through this, and we're getting the projects built, and it's a big deal.
Mayor, I don't know if we've actually talked about the award on air. And I'm wondering if Jennifer can just, so that while people are watching, can hear what the award is. It's a big deal.
Okay, Jennifer.
So we received a Project of the Year award from the American Public Works Association, Oregon chapter. And I believe there was 5 other projects that we beat out. And so very, very impressive and awesome. And we'll actually submit it for a national award this spring. So that'll be exciting, and yeah.
And that was for Kronberg.
That was for Kronberg, sorry. Of course, it's for Kronberg.
Really well done to you and the team. So thank you both to Steve and Jennifer and to everybody who worked on that project. It was a huge lift. And it honestly was a lift that started long before even we were here. So I have to call it thanks to Chuck and to Alma and to the team that really made it a reality before even we arrived. So thanks, everyone.
And it's getting used all the time. All the time. When I go past there, there's almost always somebody in Kronberg Park on the path or on the elevated walkway. So it really has increased active transportation in the city, and safe active transportation. I don't see people walking on the side of 99 with baby strollers anymore.
Yes, that's a major accomplishment. Yeah.
No, it's a big deal. It was an amazing engineering feat. It's a beautiful, beautiful pathway. And, that's people go out. I know people that go out of their way to take that route because even though it's, 30 seconds on a bike, it's still gorgeous.
So one of the things that Kelly and I are both working on this year, celebrating things. So thank you for humoring us while we go through that. And thank you to the staff again. But I think that that's everything we have on this.
Cool.
Mayor, we have an executive session after this, and I figured we may want to take 5 minutes before we enter that, just so that everyone can grab some food if they wanted to grab something before meeting.
You think it's going to last a long time?
No, I think it's probably only 20 minutes, maybe less.
And is it this, do we stay on or are we calling back?
We have a different link.
Okay.
Okay, well, so it's 5:10. Do we want to take a break now or just get through this executive session and then take over at 5:30 so that we can actually eat?
I would like at least a 5-minute break, please.
Okay. We'll have a 5-minute break.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, you need to read the citation.
Yes. After the work session, council will meet in executive session pursuant to Oregon Revised Statute ORS 192.6602I to review and evaluate the job performance of the chief executive officer, other officers, employees, and staff. If the person whose performance is being reviewed and evaluated does not request an open hearing.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
See you in 5 minutes.
Bye.
Scott.